Greetings, cinephiles. Are you looking for a movie analysis podcast that stands above the rest? Then look no further than Collateral Cinema, the only movie podcast that matters.
We analyze good movies, we analyze bad movies, and yes, we also analyze the in-betweens of the world of cinema.
So if you like what you hear, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
And yes, my friends, we are 420 friendly. So when you listen to us, smoke it if you've got it. And now, here's a new episode of Collateral Gaming. The show starts right now.
I'm Ashley Chancellor.
I'm Zachary Gio.
I'm Dan Rockwood.
And this is Collateral Gaming with
Victims and Villains.
Ba 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 ba! Welcome to Collateral Gaming, the only video game podcast that matters, where we focus on good games, bad games, and everything else in between in the world of gaming. We are podcasting straight from somewhere in South Texas and other places too. And yes, my friends, we are a 420 friendly podcast, so whatever you have, smoke it if you've got it. Zach, Dan, it is finally time to talk about this fucking game, guys, right?
Yeah, I think we're oh man, there's so much to talk about. We're about to run out of time tonight before we even crack the surface, which is fantastic because we got it. This is the Zelda game that I believe personally we've always wanted. It is quite simply, I'm never going to call anything perfect, but it's the best video game I've ever played in my life. And I've been, according to my Nintendo Switch, spending 90 hours or more having the absolute time of my life. And I can't imagine you guys are very far from the opinion. As true avid Zelda fans, like we all are, it has been, now at the time of recording this, 2 weeks. And amazing.
Like, I've just been having the blast of my life, and it's been amazing. So yeah, this has consumed my life. I took a whole 4-day weekend to play this game and did nothing else but play Zelda.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I did the exact same thing. I feel like if you wanted to hear our thoughts on this game, just go back and listen to like any podcast that has been released previously. We feel like we end up talking about Tears of the Kingdom even before it came out and just speculating about it.
100%.
So, yeah, I mean, Breath of the Wild did things so well. It's widely regarded as the greatest video game ever made. I definitely agree with that opinion. And then Tears of the Kingdom comes in, and I remember being a little bit nervous. I knew they were going to crush it, but I was just like, where do they go from here? What do they do? And the answer is a lot. They just went through, and I can... when they were reusing the assets, right, in the map, and I'm like, what did they spend 6 years doing? And that question has been answered. And I'm not even that far. I know, Zach, you're very far in the game, and Ash, you're not as far, but pretty far. And then there's me. I have about 40 hours in, but I've done virtually, like, no story stuff. I've done a little bit. I'm just running around, exploring the sky, exploring what's changed in Hyrule, building these idiotic different like machines that you can do. So it's just been a whole lot of fun, and I feel like the three of us have been playing in kind of different ways, and that's the most exciting thing about this game, is that you can play it in so many different ways and see so many different things about it, and it's awesome. If either of you are on TikTok, it's like an arms race amongst the Tears of the Kingdom community.
Ain't a scene.
Oh my gosh, dude. There's so much content.
I've seen
crazy.
Koroks launched into space. I've seen Koroks crucified. Can I ask you this? Why do people keep crucifying Koroks?
I don't know. I love strapping rockets to him and letting him go, but the whole crucifixion thing, God. I don't know.
My favorite clip that I've seen so far on TikTok has to be somebody decided to put like 6 or 7 Koroks on a stick and like roast it like a spit over the fire.
On a stick.
And
I've
on a
seen
stick,
that.
and it's just it's beautiful. You have, of course, you've got your average dick and balls, giant auto build. You've got the what are the exploding balls with the like flame emitter, fucking dude. It's so stupid.
It's just absurd. I saw a logo today someone drew that was the Korok space program, and it was like a Korok strapped to a rocket, and I feel like I need a t-shirt of that. I have not been launching them into space. I've been treating them nice because I like the Koroks. But yeah, it should be said, so this is going to be our spoiler-free episode. We're going to talk about mechanics. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of different stuff, but we're not going to go into spoilers, which I appreciate, both for the listeners and also for my sake, because you guys are further than I am. So we're going to touch on some, a whole lot of different stuff, but nothing that will, totally spoil the game for you. So important to be said up front.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and just kind of as we do whenever we make a new game, a numbered episode is like, just kind of split it up and do part 1 spoiler free. It's the same month the game came out, give people a chance to play, and then we'll really dig into the story later. And that'll be good because we'll have all completed the game by then, because I'm not planning on recording this until, we at least all beat the main story, if not 100%. I'm going to be trying for that before we record. So, yeah. But, like you said, Dan, this time, we can really kind of just delve into the mechanics. I don't feel like there's very much spoiler content there as far as gameplay goes, because like Breath of the Wild, you get your main abilities at the start of the game, and those were announced prior to the game coming out. So, and in a lot of ways, this game does play very similar to Breath of the Wild, and it's kind of funny because if you look in some of the Zelda communities, I mean, you'll see some people like getting kind of pissy about the fact that it's like Breath of the Wild. But hold on a second. This is the direct sequel to Breath of the Wild. It's Breath of the Wild 2. Like, what did you expect? Yes, it is going to be in that trajectory. And I think all games from here on, for the next 10 plus years are going to stick to this format like they did with
2 games.
Ocarina of Time. Right?
Yeah.
All 2 games in the next 10 plus years.
I'm sorry, I should have made that longer. Like the next 20 years or so would probably be
I'd
more
say
accurate.
this Breath of the Wild was the Ocarina of Time that the series needed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because Ocarina of Time didn't just change the course for Zelda games. Ocarina of Time, and we're not talking about Ocarina of Time, but it's a good example. Ocarina of Time kind of set the standard for 3D adventures.
Yes.
And to be honest, to be a fan of such a series that had such an impact like that on gaming as we know it, it's an honor, to be quite frank, and that's the very deep embedded geek in me. But I am so happy that Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are not just amazing titles, but they're 2 of the greatest video games ever made. If you factor in like abilities and exploration and things that you can do, a lot of people have been harping on the graphics, and I'm like, dude, have you ever played Skyrim? That is my fiance's favorite game in the world, and it doesn't look amazing, but I mean, it does with mods and stuff like that. But the base game, it's a video game.
Yeah.
But to her, she loves that game as much as you and I, me, you, Dan, as much as we love Tears of the Kingdom and Zelda, because of that exploration and the impact that it has on you.
Yeah.
And to be able to look at it from, honestly, multiple perspectives, as somebody who's never played the game, somebody who is a deep fan, it's huge. It doesn't matter how you look at it. It is all-encompassing. It's ridiculous. I haven't even really done a fourth of the stuff to do, and I'm 90-plus hours in.
And Breath of the Wild had a bigger in-game map, I believe. And Tears of the Kingdom has that map plus 2 extra layers of map. So,
Yeah. It's the marketing behind this game was really brilliant too, and I remember going against it because I thought they needed a big 30-minute Nintendo Direct about Tears of the Kingdom. We didn't end up getting that. We got a mini Direct, and then there was some teaser trailers that we got, but they did a really good job. There are major components and areas of this game that was never mentioned in any of the marketing. People inferred it, and they would speculate, but nothing was confirmed. And so that first time coming up on a big area or a big gap or something, and I'm like, what is this? Where am I going right now? And then it's like, oh man, I didn't really know this was going to be here. It's so cool.
Dude, it's mind-blowing. The first time you experience some of the more prevalent stuff that was not in the trailers, those are genuinely awe-inspiring and jaw-dropping moments. And I haven't really had many of those in games in the last, honestly, 10 years. Metroid Dread was great and it was fun, but it didn't just, blow me away. I was just that was a really fun Metroid game, and Samus is still a badass. But when you play games like this, there's a hole in your heart when you finish. Because you know that you'll never get to experience it for the first time again.
Yes.
And you'll never get to, which that sounds sad, but it's actually a beautiful thing because we rarely get that nowadays.
Yeah.
And the fact that Tears of the Kingdom was not only better significantly than Breath of the Wild, it's better significantly than most video games I've ever played.
So, Breath of the Wild, Zelda's obviously my favorite video game series. And of Zelda games, my two favorite up to this point were tied, Breath of the Wild and Majora's Mask. I've brought this up a lot on the podcast. But those were my two favorites because Majora's Mask is it's one of the most unique Zelda games, and we've got whole episodes of us talking about that. And then Breath of the Wild because of how revolutionary it was. But the one thing that stopped Breath of the Wild from really earning that number one spot for me was that it did take a little bit too much away from the traditional Zelda experience.
Yeah.
There was a little bit missing. The story was pretty well written, just not the way that it was executed via the open world, just kind of, there wasn't a whole lot of plot twists after the first hour of gameplay, right? So, those were the things that was kind of missing. And for it to be the perfect Zelda for me, it would have to be everything that Breath of the Wild did right, and then kind of fix a couple of those things, and Tears of the Kingdom did. Now, yes, the dungeons are very similar to Breath of the Wild. They're not going to be your traditional Zelda dungeon that you remember because that doesn't work with an open format. But
it doesn't.
They brought what was important back. The dungeons are themed. They're not the same thing, and the dungeons have unique bosses. And even the way that you kind of go about the dungeons, I feel like, brings a little bit of the exploration back. They feel longer. They feel more like dungeons than the Divine Beasts did. So the fact that this game managed to, to grab the things that Breath of the Wild did right and then fixed those little things, chef's kiss. Yes, this is what we wanted. Like you said, Zach, this is the Zelda game we've been waiting for. This may end up being my favorite game of all time by the time I'm done with it.
And to be quite honest with you, Breath of the Wild walked so that Tears of the Kingdom could go at warp speed.
Yes.
And when they play and feel almost the exact same while being completely different in almost every single way except graphics. And
it's like the right sense of familiarity, but newness, right? Just the perfect mix.
You remember you remember the bullshit that people were talking about where they were like, oh, this just looks like DLC.
It was originally
Sure
DLC,
do.
actually. That's what's funny, was that so some of the beginning concepts for this were envisioned as DLC. And then they just ended up fleshing it out into a whole game because there were so many ideas. And no, this is not DLC. Somehow they took the exact same surface map of Breath of the Wild, right? And they still made it feel different. I don't know if it's the shrine placement or the changes that they made to each of the main geographical regions, or just kind of the way that you set out and explore it. But at times it doesn't feel like the same map. It just kind of feels like things are in the same places and you notice the same landmarks, but it's like, it's like I didn't feel like it was the exact same thing. It somehow felt different. And then on top of that, they add the sky to it. And then on top of that, on bottom of that, there's more. And I think, even that's maybe saying a little much because, again, not in the trailers. That was a complete surprise to find out that there was even more to this game's map than I anticipated. Just blew my mind.
I feel like I knew that there was going to be some underground elements, but I think it's more close to, well, I know I can't really say that, so I'm not going to ruin that for you guys, but I feel like there were some close elements to that in the trailer, but nothing like what we actually got.
Right.
Honestly, we could probably talk about it and not spoil it. Not going to, but it still doesn't beat the first time you see it. Because when it happens, it catches you completely by surprise. Even if you're listening to this right now and you haven't played the game, it will throw you for a loop. And that's one of the coolest things ever, to be honestly expecting something massive, but you're still destroyed by it mentally. Because that's how it happened for me. And that kind of allows me to segue into my next point, because the music in this game is incredible.
Oh, yeah.
It's another one of those things that to me makes Breath of the Wild kind of look like a tech demo almost, because the music changes almost perfectly to your environment. In Breath of the Wild, there was a lot of kind of ambient sounds, and I don't know if I even said that word right. I'm a musician and I don't gone.
Usually we just
a lot
say
of ambience. Yeah, there was a lot of ambience, but the regional music for the dungeons, the fights, everything is unique. Nothing is used over and over again, except for the outdoor ambience. But there's so much more of it that you kind of lose track of certain elements, and they catch you by surprise all over again. And you're like, "Damn, that is beautiful." I'm kind of going off on a little soapbox here, but y'all know how I am about music, and y'all know how I was originally about Breath of the Wild, and to remember how much I loved Breath of the Wild and how much I talked about it on episodes that had literally nothing to do with even Nintendo. You guys, you know how I feel. So
I love even the more subtle music notes, like when you're running across Hyrule Field, and it's just like those few like piano notes that will play every now and then. And the Hydra Mountain region, or when you're the Hebra Mountains, excuse me, I'm not in a Marvel movie, so no Hydra. But when you're in the Hebra Mountain range, there's it's just quiet and it's snowing and it's cold, and then there's that there's a couple of tones that will play here and there, but ultimately you're kind of isolated in this frozen tundra. It's just so cool because there are these areas that you're familiar from Breath of the Wild and you're re-exploring them, and they do add things and stuff to find, and it's not the exact map skinned over. It's worth going through and looking through everything again, and it's just it's really cool. And they added some interesting hints that serve as things that are helpful, but it's not really something that's told to you specifically. It's just like Breath of the Wild. You go, you see something that looks a little off or strange or interesting, go investigate, interact with it, see what's there, and you'll be surprised where you might end up next, because it could point you in a direction that you would not be expecting, and that's awesome.
Absolutely.
This game is so distracting. I think that's why, we have such a hard time getting through, even just the main story. And I had the same thing with Breath of the Wild, but this game is so easy to get distracted by, and you're on your way to go do something else, and nope, my shrine sensor just went off, and there's a shrine nearby. Let me go hunt that down. And I see another shrine there in the distance. I should go check that out when I have a chance. And then you're like, oh, well, there's the side quest that's kind of in this area. Maybe I should do that too. And before you know it, you're just on a whole tangent. And it's funny because you're still loving it. And what's nice about the open-ended format of these two games is that it kind of invites you to be able to, hey, if you're not having a fun time with this, if this is getting kind of stale or too difficult, just go do something else. And the freedom to teleport literally whenever you want.
Yep.
Most games don't let you teleport when there are enemies nearby or in midair. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom don't give a fuck.
Yeah. I actually teleported in the middle of one of the major boss fights to go do some fucking cooking, dude. And Danielle and I were watching, we just started dying laughing, because when I did, the companion that I was kind of interacting with for the region, because it's a lot similar to Breath of the Wild, they were like, okay, come back when you can. I'll be here. I'll be here.
It's so funny when they do that, and I didn't warp out in the middle of a boss battle, but I did go to do some stuff, and it was like, all right, well, come back when you can. It's like, okay, so there's no time constraint here. I can just do whatever. You're just going to wait. That's cool. I was
gone for 5 days in game time.
This game was designed around, yes and no, it was designed around its puzzles. Like, I feel like there are core puzzles, but then there are so many different ways to solve them. I published an article on Tech Raptor last week, and it was titled Tears of the Kingdom Turns Glitches into Gameplay. And my whole point was that glitches from Breath of the Wild are now, thanks to Ultra Hand, their gameplay elements. But I just want to read one excerpt here. I labeled this section, Tears of the Kingdom, 1,000 Solutions to Any Puzzle. And I wrote, where previous Legend of Zelda games had players approaching a puzzle with, how do I solve this? Tears of the Kingdom instead invites players to think, what's possible? As open and amazing as Breath of the Wild was, it didn't offer this level of creativity in its core gameplay. Of course, people found a way to manipulate bombs, shields, minecarts, and more to move around the map quickly and glitch their way to the end destination. And it's just a whole, crazy experience of going through this. And exploring this area and building these crazy things, and it's just been such a joy. And I feel like we still haven't cracked the surface of what's possible, because some of the Breath of the Wild glitches took 4 or 5 years for people to discover, right? So I want to know what is going to happen years from now with people experimenting with this game.
People are still talking about Breath of the Wild and finding things that we weren't really well known 6 years later. So what's Tears of the Kingdom going to look like 6 years later? I love that they doubled down on the openness of it, because Breath of the Wild did also have a lot of puzzles that were not one-size-fits-all solutions, or I guess they were. I don't know how I'm trying to phrase that, but there were multiple ways to go about a puzzle. And Tears of the Kingdom doubled down on that. It's like the amount of creativity that's available to you via the auto build and the fuse abilities, both, is just incredible. The creations that people have made, and the game invites you to do it. I mean, there's all these little puzzles that are centered around, like a new Korok puzzle that is you taking one Korok and bringing it to another some distance away or really up high. And so, you need to build something that will get you from here to there with the Korok in tow, unless, you decide to blast it off into space as you do.
Or just fly it over there wherever you want. It's so amazing and so funny, and I'm going to read one last segment. It's just a sentence here that I'm particularly proud of from this article, but it's, unlike the oft-disproved Sony slogan, Nintendo has come out the gate swinging with this title to indicate that play truly does have no limits, and that is something that Sony has been going for years now, and they just fall a little short, and Nintendo somehow managed to pull it off on 6-year-old hardware. I don't know how they did it, but I hope this serves as a blueprint for other types of games going forward.
Okay, so I'm chomping at the bit right now with pain, because we can't go into spoilers because there's so much shit I want to talk about. Everything that you can do, it literally takes, I've said this before, I think in this episode already, but Breath of the Wild kind of looks like a tech demo that Nintendo was kind of showcasing what they were about to do. Oh, I remember exactly what I was thinking about. It feels like they've been working on Tears of the Kingdom for 12 years. It feels like they literally got the idea after they finished and produced Skyward Sword and started building. And Breath of the Wild is them showing us the world. Them giving us an example of a good story, a somewhat good story or a layout of some kind of story for an open world Zelda and how it would work. It felt like they were showcasing everything, but they also made it incredibly detailed so that we could have an experience and an adventure, which is why a lot of the things kind of looked similar in the game, like the bosses and their names and the themes for those bosses were similar. Because it's not like Nintendo to just half-ass something. They make perfection. And to be honest, it's hard to find a game that's bad by Nintendo. If you're not a fan of it, you're not a fan of it. Like, I don't really like Kirby that much, but I know those games slap. I know Super Mario Sunshine is one of the most popular Mario games, but it's not my favorite. I don't like it. Mm-hmm. I never really enjoyed it, which y'all can crucify me for that later. But it feels like they were taking everything that was possible and kind of giving us a little bit of taste for this game. Yeah. Or, very even possibly the next game that we're going to get, the trilogy that kind of sums it all up, because that's what I think this is. I think this is the second game in a trilogy of some of the most incredible human creations on the face of this earth, because this game is magnificent.
I'd be down for it because Nintendo hasn't really done that before.
Yeah.
We haven't had like a trilogy of Zelda games, so that would be incredible if that were the case. I would absolutely applaud them for it. I've been saying for years now that, you know, the fact that Nintendo starts, you know, inexplicably starts from scratch with every Zelda game, doesn't reuse assets, is actually kind of strange. The only other time they've ever done that was like Majora's Mask, you know. Well, and you can make an argument for the Oracle games, obviously, but that's different. But
I
you know,
think that's one big game.
yeah.
Majora's Mask was developed in just under a year. I mean, it came out quickly, and Aonuma famously, like, they wanted to do a I think it was a remake, if I'm getting my Nintendo lore stories mixed up. But Aonuma said, no, I got this idea for this new game. You know, let's do this. And they said, okay, but you don't have a lot of time to make it. And they built it in a year. And that's why everything circles around Clocktown to make it so it was more constrained and they're able to do that. I've never seen them straight up just take like the map like this and kind of plop it over to the next game. I know between like A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds, like those maps, but those games were so far apart and on different platforms, they're so different. This is really the first time we've seen it done on like the Nintendo Switch, and yeah, Breath of the Wild was on the Wii U as well, which is where I played it originally. But it's not really something we've seen, and I agree with you. I think they are going to do a trilogy. I hope they do a trilogy, partially because in my brain, if you're going to do a second one, you got to do a third one. Like it only makes sense to do it that way. So
The Triforce, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I mean,
how would they do it? That's the key question.
See, I'm not a developer, so I don't need to answer that question. There are top men at Nintendo figuring that out as we speak. And I trust them to do it. I trust them to get the job done.
Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Blood of the Hero.
Blood of the Champion.
God, or
Either
like
one of those would be
Blood
sick.
of the Sea. I don't know. I feel like it's got to be land. It's got to be like noun and then like a place, because we've had wild and then we've had kingdoms. So I don't know.
Could center it around the sea. I think that's like the one thing that's missing between these two games is there's no underwater exploration. And like, imagine what they could do if they added that. That's why like a trilogy sounds kind of perfect, because they could really like dive into that side of things. Dive in.
Mm-hmm. And that's what like Horizon Forbidden West added tons of underwater exploration, even more so in the Burning Shores DLC. So that is a huge thing. And now that I think of it, I mean, do either of you think we're not going to get DLC for this game? I feel like it's a given that they're going to expand it.
100%.
Yeah.
They're going to have an original story, kind of like they did with Breath of the Wild and the Champions Ballad. I just hope this one is better.
Yeah, think we're going to get like the Ballad of Ganondorf? I'd play that.
That would be awesome.
That would be kind of sick.
Yeah, or that maybe that could be where they add the underwater stuff to kind of expand the map a little bit, is do some DLC. So yeah, I mean the possibilities are endless, and just like already the possibilities are endless in this game. You know, like you mentioned, like everything you can create with the auto build feature, you could just attach things together. You can make cars, giant penis bots, or whatever the fuck you want. Gleeoks. I've seen people like make their own like Gleeok robots. I think that the girl did it on the treehouse.
Yeah.
Zelda, we rely on your knight and that legendary sword he carries. Our last line of defense will be Link.
Link. Here. It's something only I can do.
Do not look away. You witness a king's revival and the birth of his new world.
Okay, let's go! But you are not alone. Link. You are our final hope. Link. You must find me.
I've seen hover bikes that have been cool. Like it's just incredible what people have been doing.
Yeah, and some of the major massive weapons that people are creating, the just destructitrons or whatever you want to call them. It's nuts, man. I've seen Koroks be tortured. I've seen enemies be messed with, and it's incredible, man. There's no, and this game has been out for. It's the 25th now. It's been out for a little over 2 weeks, 15 days, something like that.
Something like that. And oh man, you know what's funny is I played it literally the minute it came out. I was continually hitting play on the game until the Switch let me do it, and it wasn't quite 11 o'clock. It was 11:01, and yeah. So I was waiting, and I was just hitting refresh and just doing it again and again and again, hitting play and play and play. And it blows my mind away that other people played at the same time I did and managed to get much farther than me, beat the game, and do everything that there is to do. Crazy. Although I say that, but I think even now, 100% completion is still kind of getting updated over time via the internet. It's there are still things that aren't, quite easy to find. And so the community, I think as a whole, is kind of still exploring this game, which is nice. And being able to experience that with the community. That's what's nice about getting a game at launch like this and just exploring everything for the first time. It was just magical. I mean, the opening moments of this game is probably the best opening I've ever seen in a Zelda game.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Some of my favorite video game moments. The second, it was funny. And Zach, I want to hear your story because I know you went to a midnight launch at GameStop and got to experience that. But I was able to pick it up during the day. I went to Best Buy in the morning when they opened up, and I grabbed it. Good thing I got there when I did, right at opening, because I was third in line, and 5 minutes later, there was maybe 30 people behind me lined up waiting to get this game. And shout out to the retail employees, because they said out loud to me, nobody prepared me that it was going to be like this today. Yeah. We didn't know it was going to be this crazy. And I was like, oh, man, what is it with retailers underestimating Nintendo games like this? I don't get it. But I brought it home, and one of my least favorite things about games is just long opening cutscenes, and I get that it sets up the story, but I want to play the game. Tell your story in a way that allows me to play. So I still had some work to do, and I was working from home, so I put the game in and I got my Switch set up, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna just run the opening cutscenes, and I'm gonna watch it while I'm doing some other stuff, and then I'll be ready to play when I'm like on my lunch break or whatever. And so I go to run the opening cutscene, and it's maybe 20 seconds, and then next thing I know, you have control of Link, and you're running around going down these stairs. And I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Like they're throwing you right into it. So I love that opening. I love how the game opens up and you're like a fully powered Link, like fresh off of Breath of the Wild, and then just a whole bunch of stuff happens and it knocks you down to be in the beginning.
He did get Samused.
Yeah, literally, like you would expect, Space Pirate to come down and just take all his gear and everything. But it was such a cool opening. So Ash, you're able to play. You got it digitally right at midnight. I played the next day. Zach, what was your experience like? What was it like going and being with Zelda fans and enjoying the midnight energy?
So it was actually a blast, and it went completely not like I expected whatsoever. So my plan was to go get the standard edition. I was going to leave the apartment and go to GameStop right around the corner at like 10:30. That's when they were going to open back up and let everybody in so that we could just kind of hang out. There was trivia, there was pizza and stuff for everybody, and we were just kind of hanging. Oh, pizza time. We were just kind of hanging out, talking about Zelda. I got into like a 30-minute conversation about why Twilight Princess looks so ugly, but it's a fun game. But what happened, I was just going to get there at 10:30 and hang out. I went to Walmart at like 5:30, 5:45, something. Oh, no, it was just like 7:30, 7:45 to go pick up some stuff to take home. And I noticed that there's 2 people in line at GameStop. And I'm like, oh, shit, this is going to be... I knew this was going to be a huge launch, but I didn't really fathom just how busy it was going to get. And so I had a thought, and I called Danielle immediately. And I was like, well, okay, so I love you, first and foremost, and I need to ask you something. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, there are 2 people outside right now in line for the game. And I kind of want to get my copy of the game and just come home. So I'm going to go get a lawn chair, and I'm going to go sit out there with these guys. And she was like, absolutely, hell yes, go do it. Because I haven't been to a midnight release since Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. It's been a long time. That game came out a long time ago, and I didn't even go to the Kingdom Hearts 3 release, because there was one here as well. But I go and pick up the lawn chair. I go and sit next to... keep in mind that I wanted to get the standard edition. I was just wanting the game. I sit down next to these 2 guys. They're really awesome. I'm not going to say their names. They're Bob and Jorge. That's not their actual names, but they're super nice guys. I was just hanging out with them. I was like, so, you guys excited for the game? And they're like, yeah, they've got like 6 collector's editions left tonight, so we're going to wait in line. I felt my heart just go nuts because I was like, oh, dude, I might have a chance to get my shot at a collector's edition. So I planted my happy ass right there for the next 4 hours.
As you should.
And at 10 o'clock, 30 minutes before they opened, the guys came out and they were like, okay, guys, so we have 4 collector's editions, not 6. Because I guarantee you 2 of the guys at GameStop went and got it, but it's fine.
That's what I was thinking.
Right. And so they gave me a ticket. It said number 3. And when they called my name, at 11:59, I got my copy of the collector's edition, which comes with... it comes with a metal case for the game. Absolutely beautiful. It comes with an art book. It comes with the pins representing something important that you will see in the game at some point. And I got an amiibo with it. I got the Arm Link amiibo.
That's such a cool amiibo.
And it comes with it came with a sleeve as well that looked like Link's arm. And I actually left it at the other apartment. But I got my game at midnight, came home, turned it on, was so excited. I started watching it. Tears of the Kingdom. And I was like, you know what? I exited the game, I closed it, and I was like, I will play this tomorrow after work. I am tired. I mean, the hardest choices require the strongest of wills. And so I turned off my Switch, and I went to bed, got up, went to work, got off a little early, came home, hung out with the fiance, turned on the game, and witnessed one of the greatest intros to a Zelda game I've ever seen in my life. That, honestly, it was fantastic. And if you haven't played it yet, seriously, you should experience it. Because it's the first fully priced video game in a long time where I was actually comfortable paying that full price. I didn't feel like I was wasting my money. I didn't feel like I was just buying it to have it. I spent like I bought the collector's edition, so I spent $120, and I feel like I could have spent twice that and still been satisfied because of the amount of content, the amount of fun and memories that I've had. I have not beaten. I feel like I'm close, but I haven't beaten the game yet, and it's been over 2 weeks. Or no, tomorrow will be 2 weeks since the game came out. And to be quite honest with you, I am happy, and I'm not planning on beating the story. I'm just gonna go around and find all the shrines and stuff before I, finally face the final boss or whatever is gonna happen. I have no idea what's coming. So I was able to hang out, went to the midnight release. Me and a dude that I met at the midnight release kind of left for a little bit to go get a snack, and then we came back like half an hour later, and that's when they started lining everybody up. But I had my place in line, so...
That's awesome.
Hell yeah.
There's something, my favorite thing about video games, and it doesn't match other mediums, because when you, like movies, you meet someone who, likes a movie. Like, Star Wars is my favorite movie ever, and I really enjoy talking to other Star Wars fans most of the time. Some are garbage, but others are others are cool people. But
I really enjoy talking to Star Wars fans. Full stop. What?
I feel like I always need to qualify that. Like, if you're slinging garbage on the internet that should not be read, then yeah, I'm probably not interested in talking to you. But I love Star Wars. It's my favorite thing in the world. But you can talk to someone about a Star Wars movie, and they have spent a couple hours watching the movie. Maybe they've watched it multiple times, but their experience is going to be inherently different, more meaningful, less meaningful, whatever. You talk to someone who has played through and beaten Breath of the Wild, or even take a Sony game like The Last of Us. Like, they have been through some shit. And this. And so it is an immediate, instantaneous connection, because it's not... Video games, by their nature, are not a passive medium. You can meet someone who has watched a movie. Maybe it was on in the background once. Maybe they're at a party and their friends watched it and they were there, and they say, oh yeah, I've seen that movie. A video game needs to be very deliberately, like, you need to carve time out of your day and your schedule to be able to do this thing. Yes. And so when you meet and talk to someone who has also done that, it is this instant connection of, not only do we both like this thing, but we like it enough to have planned to some extent our lives around it. And so, I did not get the chance to go to a midnight release this time around. I do want to go for the next Zelda game, whenever that will be. God knows, at this point I'll probably be close to 40, dear Lord. But I'm hoping that... when you meet these people who are fans, and it's really how I got to know you guys. I didn't know who you guys were a few years ago, but now we've never met in person, but I consider you guys good friends, and it's because of our connection through Zelda, through video games, and that's just an awesome thing, and I love that. And whenever people try to break down video games as like a dumb medium, it hurts me because there's so many good, cool, positive things about it. And I want to help promote those things more and experience those things more. And Tears of the Kingdom is such a cool medium and such a cool game. And I'm so happy Nintendo nailed it. This game might have not been as good as it is, but it is.
It could have flopped.
And
it could have absolutely flopped.
I'm just so happy, and a big reason I wanted to record this with you guys now is, not only was I excited to come on and talk about it, I want to listen back to this episode 5-6 years from now and be like, what were my, hot takes on this game? What was I experiencing after I sink probably another 100 hours into it? So I'm excited to kind of have this be our record in time of how we feel about this game, and we can see kind of how that changes as the years go on.
Absolutely.
Hell yes, I agreed with everything you said. People that fucking when people talk about video games being dumb, I just want to strap them to a chair and force them to play through a Zelda game. I'm the best logic puzzles of my life that I've ever played have been playing video games. It's and then that's what it's about. And I've always been attracted to more intellectually stimulating games like The Legend of Zelda that are centered around puzzle solving and and even just the nature of video games being as interactive as they are, like you said. And when you talk to someone else that's played a game, it's you've both experienced that thing together. And it's Tears of the Kingdom is just one of the most beautiful examples of that. And what's funny is I hear Zelda fans complain about how like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom were empty. Like I heard this shit about Breath of the Wild. And what do you mean? Breath of the Wild is filled to the brim with shit, right? It really was. It was like there was so much to do. The world was not only massive, but like around every little corner, there were 120 mini dungeons, and there were 900 Korok seeds, and these were all centered around central Zelda aspects, dungeon exploration, and puzzle solving. And it's like, if you don't enjoy that, do you really enjoy Zelda games? And I feel like Tears of the Kingdom, in a lot of ways, doubles down on a lot of that. I feel like the shrines are better designed. And the nature of being able to have more ways of going about solving puzzles really helps because of what you can create and, you know, what you can even just like fuse. You know, this game doesn't have the useful updraft ability from Breath of the Wild. Instead, you got to improvise a little bit. Let me attach a rocket to my shield or carry a couple what do you call those things? Boingy things.
Oh, the springs?
Springs. Carry a couple of springs with me. In order to give myself the ability to do that. And I think that that's so important. Also, one thing I want to point out while we're comparing to Sony games, as we did earlier, loved God of War and its sequel, God of War Ragnarok, but God damn, do the developers not trust your ability to solve shit on your own and try to give you hints way too quickly. Even Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor are a little guilty of that because they offer the hint really early, although you can choose to ignore it, which is nice. But it's like Zelda doesn't do that. Zelda doesn't hold your hand, and Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom especially don't, because there are so many different ways to solve a puzzle. They kind of just let you go at it, and I experienced that a lot playing through this game. There were a lot of shrines where I was honestly stumped, and you could look online and you could find like 3 or 4 different solutions to a single shrine puzzle. It's crazy.
When in reality, there's probably 10 to 20 different things you could do differently because of the amount of freedom that you have. Now, granted, it's going to be different compared to each shrine. Yeah, because you're going to have different environments, different stuff. But I agree with you 100%, man. The puzzles and the world building around those puzzles is fantastic. If everybody remembers, Breath of the Wild's kind of central color was blue. You know, all the shrines were blue themed. Once you visited a shrine, it became blue. But this game, the shrines are centered more around a green color, which this is taking me back to why I think there's going to be another game, a third game, because blue, Link wakes up after 100 years in Breath of the Wild and starts to regain his memories back. Therefore, he gains wisdom and understanding as to what is happening through the story, through him finding the strength again to be the champion that he was before he fell during the Great Calamity. And in Tears of the Kingdom, the theme for me personally is courage. Yeah. I think from the very beginning of the game, Link has to show tremendous courage to embark on this journey. Every single start of every single video game, we see Link, our hero, buckle down and, take this head on. Like Skyward Sword, he bared witness to Zelda getting thrown into a great black tornado. And he decided, instead of cowering in fear, he fucking went to go do something about it. Because I'm pretty sure the Zelda and Link in that game love each other. They were in love, 100%.
100%. It's undeniable. It is practically canon.
But, which
of course,
is
the
awesome
item shop
because...
girl isn't bad either, though.
Shut your mouth. That is so disrespectful.
I felt so bad letting her down, man.
Yeah, but I think that's wonderful because that kind of centered everything around. But to continue what I was thinking, Tears of the Kingdom is the first Zelda game besides Breath of the Wild, because in Breath of the Wild, Link doesn't remember shit. He's just like, oh, I'm awake now. What do? I'm in underwear. Great. So Tears of the Kingdom is the first Zelda game. The first Zelda game where I truly felt alongside Link in like having the courage to take this overwhelmingly massive task of restoring balance to the Kingdom of Hyrule and, aiding Zelda. So, and it's huge. It's so massive. I think the last Zelda game to really do that to me was Ocarina of Time, believe it or not. feeling that courage.
I think that the thematic element of courage is really prevalent in the game, I mean, just in its basic premises. I mean, look at the fact that so much of the game takes place around skydiving around. I mean, Link wakes up in a sky island, and he just decides to dive off that shit.
Yep.
If that's not courage, I don't know what it is. Well, it could be a few things, but we'll call it courage.
That was such a big surprise, too. We didn't really know that the game was going to start up in the sky or if you had to get up there. So really beginning the game there and kind of discovering. And I don't know about for you guys, I didn't look around as much, but when you first wake up and you kind of leave where you are and you dive off, I thought I was going to the ground and I thought I reached the ground, but nope, you're still well up in the sky on that great sky island. And, which maybe I'm the only one who feels this way. Looking at the geography of the Great Sky Island, it looks very similar, in my opinion, to Skyloft. And I don't know if that's intentional. I don't know if I'm projecting, but I was getting some Skyloft vibes from there. And I feel like Nintendo is a friggin' mastermind. They released the HD edition of Skyward Sword almost 2 years ago now. That feels intentional that would be like the stopgap game before Tears of the Kingdom. And of course the Sky Islands, like there are a whole lot of, inferred and implied connections here. And as I get further in the story, maybe they'll become more apparent, but I feel like there are real connections between Tears of the Kingdom and Skyward Sword, which is just, it's cool to see. Like I like to see the connections between the Zelda games like that.
In more ways than one, yeah. And I mean, I know, like, we could see that beginning of the game, and a lot of the fan theories started to boil. And then whenever you kind of figure out what's going on with Zelda and where she is, I mean, that really comes into full force. God, I can't wait to get to the next episode and really get into this. But there are a lot of connections to Skyward Sword, which is probably awesome for you, Zach, because I mean that was your favorite Zelda game, right?
Yeah, it's still my second favorite. Like I love Breath of the Wild, don't get me wrong, but Skyward Sword, as far as linear Zelda, it's the best. It is just untouchable. Ocarina of Time is great. It set the standard for 3D games. I get it, but Skyward Sword is just better. A lot of people couldn't get past the motion controls. They didn't like that, but the HD version renders that a moot point. So the story, the graphics, the gameplay, it's just, it's a little bit more linear than most Zelda games, but the linearity is also the beauty of that original Zelda style. They just couldn't do it anymore, which is why Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom had to come out. They needed something new.
Yeah.
But to tell the story that began it all, there's no other way but to do it than the traditional original Zelda style and format, and they nailed that. And the fact that Tears of the Kingdom is kind of expanding on that feeling a little bit, it being in the sky, you feel like it's a high-definition version of what Skyloft and that whole area would have been like before you go down to the surface.
Yeah, I agree with that. And what I think actually works to Tears of the Kingdom's advantage is that it approaches at least the progression of the main quest more linearly than Breath of the Wild did. And I think that allows them to tell a better story. Now, the same rules apply. You can still jump, as soon as you exit the tutorial area, in this case, the Great Sky Island. And yes, you can go back and you can revisit the Great Plateau if you wish as well. There's a neat little side quest over there. But as soon as you leave the tutorial area, you are thrown into the world, and you can basically approach things in whatever order you want. You have a main quest mission that's very similar to the memories in Breath of the Wild, and those are the tears. And what's actually going there is, instead of unfolding Link's past, you're finding out what the fuck happened to Zelda when she disappeared, which is cool, piecing together that story. And it makes for a more compelling side narrative to come back to and to unfold and kind of see what happened than Breath of the Wild did with just Link's memories of what happened 100 years ago. Because let's face it, we found out what happened 100 years ago at the beginning of the game. Like, at that point, it was just getting to that point. Here, we don't know what is going to happen with Zelda, with these other characters, and it's really nice. But, you open the world and you have that quest line. You have 4 geographical regions, but I hear that there's more dungeons than that. And so, like, you have all the shrines and Korok seeds and everything else to explore. And that, in that sense, it's as open as Breath of the Wild was, if not more. But when you're kind of going through at least the main story missions, I do appreciate that they approach the story a little bit more linearly, and I think that works. And so that allows you to kind of pick and choose how you want to play through the game. Do you want to play in a more linear fashion, or do you want to really explore? And what makes this game is how well you can tangentially like go off of that. I mean, it's kind of like how we've been talking in this episode. We'll just kind of go on about this thing, and then we'll just go on to another thing, and that's very much what the game is like.
100%.
Absolutely. Well, I kind of want to dive into the spoiler territory, so we might have to cut this short and just jump into spoilers as soon as we can, because oh my god, dude, I want to talk about the story with you guys so bad. I'm so ready for this.
I want to play more. We got a long weekend. We got Memorial Day weekend coming up. I'm going to play a whole lot of it over this weekend and just have a blast with it. But I am loving it. I actually ended up buying 2 copies. I got a physical copy, and then my wife borrowed it. I thought she was going to play like months from now, but she wanted to play it day 2. And then I wanted to still play it too, so then I just bought a digital copy that I downloaded to my Switch. So we have the 2 copies now. But I've been having a blast with it. I got the Zelda OLED prior to it coming out too, so I've got the Tears of the Kingdom like Joy-Cons and the OLED Switch and all that, so it's been great. It's a really good investment, and yeah, I'm just loving this game, and I have not touched another video game since I picked it up, and I probably won't be playing anything else for the foreseeable future.
Honestly, I might play Gang Beasts a little bit this weekend. That's a stupid game. I don't know if y'all know what that
I
is.
love that game. That's a good choice.
It's so much fun. I'll probably be playing that a little bit with a buddy of mine. One of my groomsmen for my wedding is coming to spend the weekend with us, and I'm really pumped because he wants to see Tears of the Kingdom. I think we're gonna go back and watch Sky High, that old movie.
Oh, so good. Such a good movie.
So good.
Yep, War and Peace, love it.
Oh yeah, dude. That's his favorite character too.
It's so great.
There's a lot more gameplay that we can even get into, but I mean, we can also save a lot of it for part 2. I mean, because just even with like the starting abilities, you know, you've got the Ultra Hand, obviously, which you talked about, the fuse ability, which is so cool because you can just fuse different things to your equipment and try out different combinations of things. Some that work better than others. You can fucking fuse a minecart to your shield, and when you shield surf, you're actually skateboarding. It becomes Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Yeah,
which is
Hyrule Pro Skater.
Is pretty fun.
I love that. That ability was so much fun. Ascend, which I frequently forget that I have, and I'm like trying to figure out how to scale something, and it's like, wait, I can just magically swim through this mountain. That's a thing I can do. So yeah, there are some awesome abilities, and Ultra Hand is, I think the Ultra Hand and Fuse are like the 2 biggest ones that you'll be using most often.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Ascend is more useful than you might think it is. I think some people kind of forget that it exists sometimes, including me at times, and you really miss out on the usefulness of it sometimes because, again, you know, we're kind of replacing the Rivali's Gale ability, which there isn't an equivalent force that I've come across other than these. But like that kind of in a lot of ways is a lot more powerful. In Hyrule, one of the changes that they've made to the Hyrule surface map is adding a bunch of caves to the bottoms of mountains that weren't there before. So that really helps with being able to just traverse mountains. Now you don't have to waste stamina climbing a mountain. There's probably a cave that you can use to just ascend your way up there. And of course the recall ability. By the way, so many puzzles are solvable with recall that like I remember watching a video and it was like a dude making an endlessly long bridge, which a lot of people are doing to just kind of cheese this game, you know. And then it was like another guy who was just sending a piece of magma forward and then just using recall to ride it back, or pulling it towards him and using recall to ride it back. And I remember I actually approached that shrine the exact same way, but it was like the Virgin versus the Chad Zelda player. Yeah, I was like, I did it the Chad way. There were so many different like inventive ways that you can go about the game, and I'm sure we'll get into it in the next episode. Because there's just so much to talk about. Yeah,
there is. I think we'll need to siphon off about 2 hours for that bad boy.
For sure.
Oh man, you guys are awesome.
Seriously, I love you guys. Like, no way home moment. And I will also be happy to have Megan on board part 2. Unfortunately, she hasn't had a chance to play the game yet. So Megan, if you're listening, we love you. And you can listen to this because it's spoiler free, so you should. And we can't wait to talk about Tears of the Kingdom with you in full spoiler details. I mean, it's just going to be glorious.
Hell yeah, I can't wait for that.
Which may be a while, because I want to give us enough time to really finish the game. I mean, I'm going to try to 100% it. I didn't technically 100% Breath of the Wild. I did everything except for the Korok seeds. And I did all the Korok seeds necessary to upgrade your equipment, which is half of them, but I didn't do all 900, because I didn't feel like going to that much trouble for golden shit. And I swear to God, it better not be golden shit this time.
I'm positive it is. I don't know what else they would do.
I 100% think that it's still Hestu's gift. I have no idea, but I swear to God, Nintendo is balls to the wall with that shit. They don't give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of the Korok seeds is just that, like, you were never meant to find every single one. That was not their intention. So Nintendo is literally telling you, like, you are wasting your time trying to do this. They're there so that you have something to, like, discover when you're exploring. You are not meant to be seeking these things out. They're just supposed to be stuff you find as you go along.
That's a good way of looking at it, actually. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they expected that somebody would do it, but, like, the main intention is that most people, and, like, I can make a good argument for why I think you should complete every shrine in Breath of the Wild, and I think I'll agree with Tears of the Kingdom. I think that's part of getting the dungeon gameplay, but especially with Breath of the Wild only having 4 dungeons, right? This game having more and having longer ones is a bonus, and more shrines on top of that.
You got 156 shrines.
But I think that's really all we have to say for now about Tears of the Kingdom. We could probably make a 5-hour episode on this, to be honest with you. But that's all we'll get into now. We'll leave the rest for next time. That may end up being an overly long episode, just with just how much there's going to be to, like, just explode about in all 4 of us. But I guess we're not really going to get into final thoughts, because this is only part 1 of a 2-part episode. But, I mean, so far, first impressions of the game, guys, from the time that the 2 weeks that we've had it with, what do you think about Tears of the Kingdom? I feel like that's a stupid thing to ask.
10 out of 10. It's the best video game I've ever played. I'm loving every second of it, and the people who don't like it haven't played it.
Yeah, agreed. Easily a 10. I tell my friends, I have friends who still have not played Breath of the Wild. I say there is no single video game that should be a higher priority to you than Breath of the Wild. That should supersede everything else, and I now feel the same way about Tears of the Kingdom. I was having a blast with Jedi Survivor. I put that game down to play Tears of the Kingdom, and I will continue to play Tears of the Kingdom and go back to Star Wars afterwards. But I'm hoping, like, this is my summertime game. Like, I don't think I'm going to be rushing through it or playing other stuff. I'm just going to be focusing the next few months on really enjoying and exploring everything this game has to offer. So I'm pretty psyched about it.
It's really best enjoyed that way. That's what's awesome about it. But you can just invest so much time into this, like, whatever you had. Like, my favorite thing to do is come home and fucking play this game right now. Yeah, this is, like, it is just so awesome. It's the thing I look forward to at the end of the day right now, is just going into the world of Hyrule and seeing what comes next. As for, like, my impressions so far, I agree. 10 out of 10. So far shaping up to be the best Zelda game I've ever played, which makes it the best game I've ever played. But I want to finish it and really say that before I say that. I want to fully get through this and be able to be like, yeah, this is the best game that's ever been made. It's really shaping up to be. I can't wait to see what Nintendo pulls out of the future with this franchise. But I mean, it feels like it's hard to top this. They will, but and I recommend it to literally anybody. I think this game is best enjoyed if you played Breath of the Wild first, and I feel like in a lot of ways Breath of the Wild might be kind of hard to come back to with all of the extra stuff that there is to do in this one, and a few quality of life improvements. Unlike, like, older Zelda games, where it's kind of like, well, like, you can, they're kind of timeless in a sense. But even if you haven't played Breath of the Wild, you can 100% start this game. There's really nothing connecting it too much to that story. It just kind of happens to take place after it, featuring the same Link and Zelda, which is nice. Anybody can pick up this game. I recommended this to my ex-wife, actually, who hasn't played Breath of the Wild, and I don't even know if I would have recommended that to her as much as this game, because she's someone who's very creative and loves games that kind of just let you do things your own way, and I was like, you should check this out, because this is right up your alley. If you're super creative, you're going to love it. If you're not and you're more like logical brain person like me, you're still going to love it because of just like how many different ways you can solve something. It's just fucking amazing. I wholeheartedly recommend this game. I mean, I guess if you didn't enjoy Breath of the Wild, then this doesn't fundamentally change the mechanics of that game. So if you just hated the direction that Zelda went with that, well, tough titties. I mean, that's kind of how we can expect Zelda to be from here on. But you know, if you didn't enjoy that, I mean, this isn't going to offer a wholly different experience. But if you're a hardcore fan who had a few nitpicks and a few things that really bogged down your enjoyment of it, I think you'll find that this fixes a lot of those, improves on a lot of that. The dungeons are way better. I mean, I think that's the biggest improvement. And I'm excited to get into it more with the next episode. I've completed 3 out of the original 4 so far, the first set of 4. By the time we finish this, we'll have completed them all, which will be nice. We can really get into it.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah. It's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it.
Same here.
Yeah. All right, Dan. Well, before we go, where can our listeners find Tech Raptor, Victims and Villains, and follow you?
Absolutely. You can find my writing over at techraptor.net. If you just type in my name, Dan Rockwood, you'll be able to find me there. You can also follow me on Twitter over at drock64. Not as active over on there, but, I go in from time to time. And, of course, over at Victims and Villains, where we, look at pop culture through the lens of mental health, helping to get mental health resources into schools and support suicide prevention and awareness, and getting all of those resources and details out for people, and just letting people reminding them they're not alone, and we are here to listen, to help, and to help spread some positivity as we go along.
Oh, that is something I need right now. I had a very traumatic event happen recently in my family. Like, just traumatic just hearing about it. I wasn't there. So like mental health resources are super, super important. And I appreciate the work that you guys do with that, because, it's the kind of thing you need. And I will suggest The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom as therapy.
Absolutely.
Personally.
Totally agree.
100%, yeah.
Alrighty. You can find Collateral Gaming wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Google, you name it. If we're not somewhere, let us know so we can be there. We also do have a Patreon, and I haven't uploaded as much new content recently, but there's actually quite a bit of content on there if you come and take a look at it. I mean, and maybe at some point I'll go back and finish my Let's Play on Breath of the Wild. I'm going to have to do a Let's Play on Tears of the Kingdom at some point. That is a given. So I'll definitely look into getting it back up onto the Patreon content soon. If you just want to be a fan of the show, you can find us on all socials, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And I think that's it as far as plugs go. You have anything to add, Zach?
No, I just plug in my lamp and computer. That's it.
Nice. Alrighty, well, with that being said, we'll see you in part 2 of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom episode. I've been Ashley Chancellor.
I have been Zachary Gio.
And I have been Dan Rockwood.
And this has been Collateral Gaming. We are out.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Collateral Gaming is a Collateral Media podcast. All music and game clips are owned by their respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.